Welcome to the Deconstructed Woman podcast, a podcast about breaking down barriers between women, exploring and sharing perspectives of each individual woman's experience, and discovering what we have in common and what makes us different. Hosted by Elisa Marie and Joji. Welcome back to the Deconstructed Woman podcast. So Joji and I have been sitting down for the last couple of weeks talking about a lot of differences that come out of the different generations. And one topic was discussions about gift giving and handing down heirlooms and sentimental items through the generations and what that looks like and how that has maybe changed in the last 10 to 20 years. Because I was talking about how there's not a lot that I want to necessarily take because I moved into this state of I want to take pictures of things, I want to have memories, but the actual physical items don't necessarily need to be in my possession for me to remember those things. And so this is a little bit of my minimalism mentality coming into play, but it also comes back to gift giving and what that has looked like in my family. And so I threw it out to Joji as well, like how that has maybe evolved for her. And so we wanted to talk about what that looks like and how that maybe has evolved, because I also see a lot of my friends and colleagues talking about how they want their parents to downsize. They want their parents to get rid of as much as possible because when they eventually pass, they don't want to take those things. And what happens next? And Joji, you and I were talking about this, and you had said that you did think that this is maybe a shift in mentality over the last, I'm going to say like 10 to 15 years. So let's start off by talking about, is this new to you, or is this something that you have thought about over the years?
I think that given my particular situation where I've lost now both my parents before I was close to 50 puts me in a different situation because I had to move my mom from the house we grew up into a condominium and then from there move her from that situation into more of a medical care environment. When you go through those levels of downsizing, then you just realize how much stuff they've collected and then having to go through all of that and try to figure out what has meaning for you. And one of the things that I learned is that my mom had meaning with everything. There was no difference between a piece of furniture and, say, for example, something she got from my dad. It's like everything had the same weight and she didn't want to throw anything away. And so that was made for very difficult conversations because she didn't want to let go of anything. We needed her to let go of at least half the stuff because she was moving into a smaller situation. And it was really hard. And then she wanted everybody else to take the stuff because she had value for it, but the rest of us did not. And what's also interesting to me in this topic is that what I wanted, my mom had no value for. So if I wanted something of my father's, because some memories tied to that, my mom thought whatever I wanted was not important. And she did not understand my connection to it. And then there went from there a conversation about it doesn't matter what you value, it matters what I value and what are the memories that I want to keep. And so I felt that was really difficult. And now that I have a daughter who is old enough to get my stuff, I definitely see that she's very pragmatic and very utilitarian almost. What am I going to do with this? Do I have use for it? If I don't have use for it, don't buy it, don't give it to me. And I see that also in gift giving. I think it's just become a lot easier now to get a list from her about what does she want for a birthday or holidays or Christmas or whatnot, instead of me trying to be creative, because I will tell you 9 out of 10 times it's not what she wants. My parents thought bridal registry or having a baby shower registry was very obnoxious because now you're telling people what to buy you. I feel like I've come full circle here. My parents thinking I'm begging for gifts, and now my daughter just saying, I don't want what you think I want. I want what I want. And so I feel I've gone from one extreme to another. Was that you laughing, Alyssa?
I'm over here nodding almost incessantly. So yes, and I definitely hear you, but it's funny because I have a little bit of a side twist to that because I'm the kind of person that likes to get people sentimental gifts. it happened just recently on Father's Day. I wanted to get my dad a sentimental gift. And everyone's like, "He doesn't need anything." And I was like, "I know, but I don't like gift cards. I just wanna get him something." And my sister, who is younger than me, and she's like the epitome of millennial, I love you, sis, don't take that offensively, she knows she is. But she was like, "Nowadays, people really enjoy experiences, and they don't want to have gifts." And I was like, "I hear you, but I wanna give him something. It's important to me." And I struggled so much, so I think we got him, like, a nut bread or something at the end of the day. I couldn't decide, and he really likes snacks, and so, like, he thinks that's practical gifts because he enjoys it, like nuts and dried fruit. So I get him, like, a dried fruit basket every Christmas. I'm just like, "Oh, I wanna get him something special," but it's hard. I'm gonna blame it on all the balls that I'm juggling right now. I struggle so much that I just default to whatever. But so many times I've been told gifts are irrelevant. You don't have to give gifts anymore. And it drives me nuts. So it's like a little that's the piece that was making me laugh because you're talking about how like people have Amazon wish lists and things like which I have one. I'm I'm not above an Amazon wish list. It actually helps me to just organize my brain with all of my children. Like they say, "Oh, I want something." And I'm like, "All right, let's add it to the Amazon wish list." So I just have a running list all year round. So it's more efficient in that way, but it also takes away the element of surprise and specialness that gift giving used to have. That's a piece that drives me nuts, but I also am starting to accept.
I totally get it. I am like you too. It's almost like creating an experience and sentimentality. So I want the blend of both you and your sister. Like I want to give a really memorable gift, but I want it to be a magical experience. I am very thoughtful about gifts and I try to think hard about what it is. And sometimes when it's people like, say, my husband, who is really hard to shop for, I've actually given up trying to shop for him because his interests are very specific. Surprise him with something that's going to meet his expectation. My husband wanted to go to this magic performance and I didn't understand it. I didn't really get it, but I've never seen him so excited about something. And sometimes you just have to go with it. If that's what he wants and it's going to give him an experience that he's really going to love, then that's nothing asking me to do that with him. I've enjoyed watching him have that experience more so than any gift I've ever given him before, even though he bought the tickets. And I will say that it was probably the most fulfilling for me as a gift giver to see somebody who is so hard to buy for actually be happy with a gift that was more than a very tangible gift of some kind, because this was definitely more the experience. Yeah, gift giving is really hard because you either have to know somebody really well to give them what it is, or you have to solicit from them what they want. So whether it's a surprise or not, they do get enjoyment when they open it. Whereas I will say my parents, the act of gift giving was more important than what the gift is. To a kid, how does that make any sense? I want what I want. I don't want what you give me because I don't have value for what you give me. But my mom loved giving presents, but it was nothing I ever wanted. And yet I was supposed to be happy with whatever she gave me. And of course, as a kid, you can't lie quite that effectively. So you're just like, what is this? Like, why are you giving me this? Or it was something she got on sale. And she just got such a great deal on it. That's what she was really proud of. But somehow I was supposed to say this was wonderful. And it really wasn't anything I wanted. Gift giving is complex.
I don't remember if we had talked about it specifically, but it takes me back a couple of years to a Christmas. Christmas being the most focused gift giving time of the year in my book. Christmases and birthdays are a big time. But I have seen our Christmases evolve. One, because we've had this discussion about like we want more experiences. So like my mom, my sister and I did a painting class and we had wine and a charcuterie board and it was really nice. It was a great experience. We got to have that for ourselves. And then another year we went and got massages and I do like that. But Christmas morning, it's nice to open presents, but now it's like you open the present that has a card that tells you what the experience is for the year. And that's fine, and most of the time, we already know ahead of time because of the fact that we've had to coordinate it and make sure everybody's on board. As the massages, for instance, we had to pick a date and everybody had to be like, okay, this is the only thing for that date so that we could all go out for a massage together.
I see. Okay. And then by the time it rolls around, is barely tied to Christmas anymore anyway.
Right. And actually, what happened is we couldn't get booked during the time that I was home for Christmas. So we actually went 4 months later. So it was far after Christmas when we actually all went. It was still a really nice gift and it was lovely. I do enjoy those times, but I think that what Christmas used to look like was everybody got up on Christmas morning and we'd open presents. And there was a lot of what kind of you were describing, like a lot of gifts were just like, "Oh, this is great," but it's not really what I want. And I remember there was one particular year where I think my sister and I were trying to be honest. We're adults, so this is within the last 10 years. Try to be more honest, and it really hurt my mom's feelings. And it was just horrible because my mom was upset and we were upset, and everybody was just distressed by this Christmas morning because we were trying to be like, "Hey, we don't really need all this stuff." Like again, it's great. This is so thoughtful. We appreciate the thought. We appreciate your time, but we don't really need it. And so then it has evolved from there. So now everybody sends their Amazon wish list. Everybody says what they want. And we almost last year said we're gonna forego gifts for adults. And then we said no, we can still just get like one or two gifts. It's just I think that it changes obviously as you get older too, and as more children come into the play and whatnot. And so it's just an evolution, but it was like, okay, how can we so now what we do is we everybody takes whatever they get. And one of the big things that I think is really hard for some people to hear, but I think for me personally, once the gift has been given to me, it's mine, and I have the choice to do with it as I please. And I think that's maybe not a welcome mentality, but it's one that I have eh, taken on because sometimes I get things and I'm like, you know what, this is great, but it doesn't really fit me. But I know somebody who it will fit, and I would love to gift it to them. Or, you know what, this is not going to work in my house, so I'm going to donate it so that somebody else can get it or I do keep it, but I would never tell the gift giver that in the moment. It's just something that happens once it comes home with me, but I know that makes it hard for people. They may feel like I'm being disrespectful, but at the same time, like my mentality is it the act of the giving to me and me accepting and thanking you, like that was the gift giving motion and action. And so after that, it's my item. And, again, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, but that has been my mentality evolving after the last couple of years.
Yes, I do think what I can relate to that is something that's not typically part of my family, which now, because you kids get married and there's new families and new family traditions that all get mixed into it, and you end up having a potpourri of family traditions. But some of the things that I've seen quite often is that something that would never have happened in my family, I understand it and the value of it, people wanting a gift receipt. Like you give somebody a gift and they ask you, oh, is there a gift receipt for that? Because now I know you don't want it. Right. And that's awkward during a holiday too. And so I do agree with you that when you get the gift, as a rule, every gift should come with a gift receipt. That way they can do whatever they want with it because it is yours. And I do agree with what you're saying. Nobody wants to advertise the fact that they're going to return it or give it away, or maybe there's a better person that it's suited for. Is that what you're thinking? It's yours now to do whatever you want with, and then um, how would you react to the person asking you about it? Or would you just not disclose that you may not have it any longer? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tricky situation because of the fact that you're never gonna know which gift was really important to that person. I mean, if you're it's Christmas I'm going back to again, but you don't know which of those gifts is there and they may have an intention for the gift that you didn't know of or you didn't see that. And so if somebody comes to my house like, "Oh, do you still have that thing?" I haven't had anyone ask me that, but if they did, I would be honest. I'd be like, "Oh, you know what? It just didn't work." And so I ended up gifting it to somebody else. I that's what I think I would do. I don't know if I would just lie in the moment. I'm not sure. It'd be hard to maneuver through, but I just never want to be disrespectful. And I never want the person to feel as if I wasn't grateful. And so I really try to emphasize, I appreciate this so much. This is such a thoughtful gift. But then again, I'm also trying to not have so much in my home because the clutter makes me crazy. Like it overwhelms me. And so having less clutter, having less things, which again goes back to the minimalism, means that I have to say no to some things. And I think that again plays a part into when things are given to me, I'm appreciative, but I may not keep it. And I'm really trying to emphasize this to my family, like that doesn't mean I didn't love it when you gifted it to me, it just didn't fit in with my home.
Yeah. Do you think that part of the things you're talking about and even some of the challenges I went with my family is just an evolution that naturally happens? Do you think that your parents had similar conversations with their parents? Or do you think that this is really like a new idea because minimalism is really catching on and decluttering has really been around and in cycles like a lot of other topics too. But definitely this new generation, minimalism is a way of life versus just not than a passing fancy.
I definitely think that maybe it's a newer, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a movement. I think it's been around for, quite some time. I feel like that's like the slogan for the newer generations. I don't need things. I don't want items. I want experiences. I want to do things. I want a quality time. And maybe some of that came out of COVID too. I'm not really sure, but I think that there's just kind of this movement towards being creative in how you're spending time with people and being present and the mindfulness. And there's so many different things that are coming to the front. And people are really trying to find simplicity and calmness and being present. And so I think that's where it's almost stemming from and it's being marketed more than I think in the past. People are like, oh my gosh, you know, we're just this consumer society and now we need to reverse that.
One of the thoughts that I had was getting back to the idea of heirlooms and what we pass on to your kids. What do you think your heirlooms to your children are going to look like?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know. Because I don't think I have anything of worth. Maybe a couple pieces of jewelry. I don't have heirlooms. I haven't gotten old enough to the point where my parents or even my grandparents' things have been passed down to me yet. And so I have a couple of things. I have a necklace from my grandmother that I got a couple weeks ago. But other than that, I don't have those things to pass down because the generations have changed. I don't have a china set. I don't have those larger things that I think of when I think about past generations and what they handed down to their kids.
Yeah, as I was thinking about what am I leaving for my own child, maybe my house, but that's more of an asset kind of a thing. Then, as you were talking about your kids and values and morals, I was thinking definitely feel like encouraging her to go to college and get a degree and have a form of income that's going to stabilize her for her life. The ability to go to college and to get a degree and to do something with that was something that I feel was important for me to give her before I leave this earth. I want her to be independent. It's a very different kind of an heirloom, but I feel like children who are able to be independent and live their life the way they choose to live it is something that is a gift. I was thinking, I don't necessarily have any stuff that I think she would want. And I fully would imagine that, say, the house was left to her, that she would probably sell it and continue living wherever she's living. I don't have this fantasy that she's going to want to move into my house because it doesn't mean it's a house she grew up in, but that's all it is for her. It's not sentimental, more so. There are days that she's sentimental about it, but then there's lots of days that she's not. I did want my mom's china not because it's worth a lot of money, but because it was something that my parents bought together when they came to the US. I I doubt she would want that. I don't think she has any sentimental value tied to it. Why? Probably because we don't eat off of it either. It sits in the china cabinet. The difference about the intergenerational and the heirlooms is that I don't expect my daughter to take my stuff, whether I think it's precious or it's garbage. I don't expect her to take it, nor will I be hurt if she doesn't want it. Whereas I think my parents would have been devastated if I didn't want what they gave me, and I would feel stuck, like I have to take it. Whereas a lot of my friends, their children just say point blank, I don't want it. It's not in my style. It's too big for my house. It's not anything I'm going to appreciate. Just get rid of it, sell it, donate it, do whatever they want, whatever you want. And my friends are hurt by that. That's not something I'm going to put upon my child. And I will say that when I was getting rid of some jewelry, I actually asked my daughter, "Do you want any of this?" before I get rid of it. It was Indian jewelry. It's my Indian jewelry. And I said, "Do you want any of this? I don't really value it. It's not, I would rather get the money for it than keep it because I'm never going to wear it. It's a part of my life that doesn't really exist for me anymore." And she picked out a piece or two, and that's for her. And we got rid of the rest. And I think that's a really workable solution for me. I offered to her, "Do you want it? If not, that's fine. I'm going to get rid of it." Whereas, some of my current jewelry, she's let me know she wants just a couple pieces of it. And that is something that I've also seen other families do, which I think is a good way to round out this conversation, which I wish that my family would have been more open to. So I've had some families tell me that their parents will let the children know beforehand who's getting what, like what their decisions are. Like it's not like after they pass away or at some will reading that you find out you get this or that. My family never had that kind of stuff to give necessarily from an heirloom standpoint. But these families, if there's something precious in the family, that they would actually put the name of the child on it and almost like one of those garage sale stickers on the bottom with the name on it. Everybody knew above board who was getting what. And if there was any conversations to be had before the parents died, that's what had happened, not after people died. I thought that was a really interesting way to handle it so that the parents actually share before they die who gets what. I'm not sure how that would have gone in my we all knew everything was going to be split three ways. That's the way my family raised us, but there wasn't anything sentimental of something per se that I can think of. What do you think your parents are going to do? I know it's a little bit in the future since both your parents are still alive. Do you think that you know what your parents are going to pass down to you? Or do you feel like that's still a discussion that needs to be had? Or you're advising your parents to get rid of everything and not really save anything for you and your family?
Yeah, I don't think I've had the conversation specifically. I know that my sister who lives closer to my parents has said when if God forbid the event that you both pass away, a lot of this is just gonna go out to the dumpster. And I think that actually put a fuel fire under my mother to be like, okay, what do I want? What do I not want? Let's start this process now. And so I think that's probably a way of life too, is that as you get older, you're downsizing and they're not moving out of their house anytime soon, but my mom has really started every time I go home, "Wow, mom, you cleaned out this particular drawer that I remember like we could never open." There was a drawer in the kitchen. It was like the junk drawer times 10. And she had cleaned it out. She was like, "Yeah, I realized, I have some time. I don't need to like keep all this stuff." So she's starting to go through things, which I'm really proud of her for doing because I think that it I don't know if it's a phase of life or where you start having that mentality, but I don't think that I've had any discussions about like, what would happen. I think that my sister and I would probably just take the time and go room by room and say, "Is there anything you want in here? No? Okay. Then we're gonna get rid of it, donate it, have an estate sale, whatever we choose at that time." I don't know that we necessarily have thought it all the way through, but I definitely know that there's not a lot that I would bring back just because I moved out of the house over almost 20 years ago. And if I haven't used it in the last 20 years, it's not likely that I need it now. That's been my mentality of there's not much that I need. I'm not going to necessarily bring it here. And I know some of the other family members have asked, "Hey, we have this thing. Do you want this?" And there's been things that have come to my house that I didn't necessarily want, but we did want to keep it in the family. There's a couple hope chests that I got from my husband's family and some really beautiful items that now we're trying to find spaces for them. And they're like, "Oh gosh, we don't really have the space for this, but oh, this is such a beautiful piece. We're going to hold on to it." So there's definitely those. We're moving into that new stage where we're being asked, do you want this? Do you want this? And a lot of times we'll say no. But if it is something that we do want, we'll take it. And so then it's already here and we already have it. So I would anticipate that when that time comes, most of the things would just be things that we would be selling off or donating or having a estate sale and going from there because there's not much. We don't really need much. And we're trying to keep it minimal here anyway.
Yeah, I will say as we end this conversation, I do think that one of the best things that we can do for our families and our children is to really have that minimalist idea. I know that when people I know have got to put their parents into care or if somebody passes away, there is this burden of having to go through stuff. And if you have lots of papers and books and things that another family who's raising their own children are going through, it really is a burden. And I think more people than not just end up throwing out everything and not being able to salvage anything. And so I really do feel like we need to share the wisdom that I have and my friends have said is that do make it easier for your children. Get things put in place, have things cleaned up. Don't make them clean up your mess. Really, if you want to do your kids a favor, get into that minimalist mentality and really only keep what you need because otherwise it will be a burden that you leave for your kids. One side note about that, which Dan and I have had to deal with, is that Dan makes everything electronic. He scans pictures. We have all of our documents are scanned. But one of the tricky things with technology is that those passwords have to also be given to your children. And how do you do that if you don't know when you're going to die? And so, how do you keep your passwords and those private things safe? And that's a dilemma I don't have an answer for, but that is something that his kids have asked us for. Is that's great that you have all these things scanned and you want us to be involved in your life after you're gone or whatever, but how do we actually do that in this world of technology? What are the logistics to get the passwords to be able to access information? Whether that is banking information or whatever it is, that I think is a new twist that we have to figure out how do we do that. And this has traveled a lot of different paths. And I just realized as you were talking, Alyssa, that we hadn't solved that problem yet in terms of the future and how do we do that and share that private information. But part of the rise of technology is what is pushing some of these issues further and further because you can do so much more with such little things that take a little amount of space anymore. And so I do think that in a weird way, we've come back full circle in terms of how we started this conversation with heirlooms and what that's going to look like in the future. But I think it was an interesting conversation. Hopefully, other people found it interesting too. And as we close out this session, I want to once again thank our listeners for participating with us and sharing your ideas and following us on Facebook and our conversations and everything like that. On behalf of Alyssa Marie and myself, I'm going to say goodbye for now and hope to catch up with you all and hope you'll listen to us again. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Deconstructed Woman. If you liked this podcast, please share it with your friends, rate this episode, or subscribe to be notified of all new content. We want to hear from you, our listener. Do you have thoughts on the discussions we're having? Want to share topic suggestions? Or want to join us for a topic that you're passionate about? Contact us at our email address, thedeconstructedwoman@gmail.com.